Welcome to the Running Explained podcast, your go-to resource for learning the how, what, and why of running so you can train smarter, race stronger, fuel better, and actually enjoy the process with a more human approach. I just switched up the script on us. I'm Coach Amanda, and
I'm Coach Nick Klostava, and today's guest is registered dietitian and friend of the pod, Stevie Lyn Smith, and we're talking all about hydration, fueling needs in the summer, how to get it right for different conditions, among other fun topics. Welcome, Stevie.
Hello. Thanks so much for having me, guys. Happy to be
Our
here.
pleasure, just like the people from Chick-fil-A, right?
To Chick-fil-A once, so
Oh, we go there all the
I've
time.
been this many times.
Zero. Oh my God, it's my kid's favorite restaurant. So,
I
well, no,
live in New York City.
Applebee's.
There's not, that's
Yeah.
not a, I'm sure someone's going to say, well, I live in New York City and Chick-fil-A. Okay, that's fine for you, Cheryl. I
Send all
don't
your
even,
Chick-fil-A
is there a
hate.
Chick-fil-A in New York City? City.
Probably. I don't
How
know.
many
Send all
Chick-fil-A's are in Buffalo, Stevie?
I mean, I can only think of one, and it was like fairly like recent. When I say recent, like
Not when
within
I
the
went
last
to school there.
decade.
I do not recall.
No,
Yeah. No.
nope, no. It had not made
You
its
have
way
much better
there.
options.
There's like
Much
two
better
within like
options.
4 miles of my house. So we're in Chick-fil-A country here. But yeah. All right. So yes, send all your hate for Amanda not liking Chick-fil-A to Amanda's
I didn't say I
Instagram.
didn't like it. I said it. This is
You
how
haven't
many
been.
times I went.
All right. Well, we'll make a visit together one day. But back to Stevie. Stevie, welcome to the pod. I saw you ran all the way from someplace in New York to another place in New York.
Amazing.
Yes, from Buffalo to Brooklyn.
It's like a short drive, right? Like 30 minutes, right?
Light work. Yes, I guess people out of New York State or not well versed in New York State can't appreciate how far it actually is. We ran roughly like 460 to 470 miles. Took about 64 hours. There was one runner on the road at all times while the rest of us were in vans. And it was quite an experience, to say the least.
And you did all this to save money on gas. So instead of driving to the city, you could just run there.
Exactly. It's a new mode of transportation.
And you
Very
missed the
effective.
Knicks. You got there too late. The Knicks had already won the championship.
You know, we weren't sure if the city was still going to be standing by the time we got there.
What is interesting is that you chose to do it. I don't know if you knew about, we have an ultra that it's our second annual dollar ultra
Mm-mm.
in New York City the same day you guys were coming in.
Oh, yeah?
So it's called the $1 ultra. And what you do is you run as many, it's like a 4.1 loop that Justin and I agreed to do next year. And you do it. And every time you run the loop, you just put $1 in and the person at the end just gets the jar. So all that to say, it was the same day that you were coming in. And I was like, this cannot be. Like, what is happening here? Congratulations on your finish.
Thank you.
Aside from being fresh off of that, can you tell listeners who don't know who you are, who are you?
Who am I? It's always the deep question. Well, besides just running from Buffalo to Brooklyn with a group of other crazy runners, I'm Stevie Lyn Smith. I am a registered dietitian, board certified in sports nutrition. I have my own virtual private practice, Stevie Lyn Nutrition, where I help athletes, endurance athletes in particular, and active individuals help to fuel not just for performance, but also for health. And I am an endurance athlete myself, obviously, having done a very long run this weekend. And I'm also a dog mom to my son Chance, who is chewing very loudly right behind me. My apologies.
And you left off multiple things. There's a book, it looks like, in the background. You're also a podcast host, right?
Yes, I forget about all of the things sometimes.
I'm staring at the book.
because we're always doing the things. Yes, I am also an author of Power Up, a Young Woman's Guide to Winning with Sports Nutrition, that I wrote with my co-author, Molly Herford, to help the girls. The girls, high school to college age female athletes is who it is geared for, though I think anyone could benefit from it, of course. That was a super fun project that we did last year in hopes to help that population have those tools that I didn't have as an athlete growing up in team sports. And of course, there are more sports dietitians available to the youth now, but the book is much more accessible than having, a sports dietitian come work with your team. So that is out there. And yes, I'm also a podcast host of Real Fuel with SLS. More great conversations, talk about all of the things sports nutrition and sports related. And I'm sure there's more things, we're just showing up and helping to support the people and figure out different ways to just, get myself and, good sports nutrition information out to all the athletes out there.
She wears multiple hats.
She
And
wears
I
so many
think
hats, she
that's
just
one of
doesn't know.
the reasons. And that's one of the reasons why we've connected so very well, because you're not a one trick pony. Okay. But so you're fresh off of your buff to BK journey, and you are here to chat with us about fueling and hydration, getting a little deeper into how that looks in the summer for running and endurance sports in general. So I think that we should probably start there, and then we could talk a little bit about you and some of the events that you've done outside of running and what fueling and hydration looks like there. But it's summer, or it's warming up for folks around our country, at least in this hemisphere. So what are some of the important things that runners need to be aware of when it comes to first fueling, then hydration, what that looks like, and anything that has been in your inbox or that you're talking about with athletes right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, it's getting hot. It's getting humid on the East Coast. And we're prepping. Yeah, I actually had a conversation with a client this morning about prepping for a hot half Ironman and some strategies that we're going to employ for that. But basically, no matter the time of year, proper hydration is going to be essential to maintain blood volume, regulate your body temperature, and kind of help prevent cardiovascular strain. If you're a runner, you have probably noticed that when you are running in the heat and the humidity, it probably feels a little bit harder. So that's what we mean by cardiovascular strain in a way that's meaningful to what does this mean for my running? Failing to kind of balance fluid and electrolyte levels can lead to severe issues like heat illness, muscle cramps, dangerous electrolyte imbalances. So, of course, running in the summer, we need to be more on top of hydration. But I always think it's important to stress that it is key to have a safe and effective hydration strategy all seasons of the year, because people will let it slide in those down seasons and the in between, the shoulder seasons, as we might say, and that can also be dangerous. So when we're thinking about hydration, it's going to be unique to each individual athlete. We all have different sweat rates, different sweat composition, and that's where, at least as of late, with the electrolyte craze, we might call it, I see a lot of runners make some mistakes, and not to their fault, because all the messaging is that more electrolytes, more sodium is better. And like most things, more does not always equal better. It's more about finding the appropriate amount for you based on your training load. So when I'm working with a client, we're thinking about before run hydration, during run hydration, and then what we need to do post run. Because all three of those things are, one, going to help our performance, help us stay safe and healthy, and make sure we're not having, some sort of heat illness or major electrolyte imbalance. And then also rehydrate and replenish after, that long run out in the heat. So you feel better too.
Yeah, I think we've gone so far with electrolytes. I remember like growing up, it was just Gatorade,
Mm-hmm.
maybe Powerade, and you just drink that when you were exercising. And then all of a sudden, I always remember Noon was like the first one, but then it's like Liquid IV, and every single brand now has electrolytes, and you just need them all the time. And no matter what, if you walk outside, if you look at the sun for too long, you need electrolytes. And it's like, no, like as a kid, we just drank, like I just drank water all the time, like, and that was it. And so, we've gotten really far with it. I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar business, so of course. But I think the other thing that's interesting that I always talk to athletes about that they miss, I think, when it comes to hydration needs is like the balance of water and electrolytes, right? Because I feel like too often people just think, oh, I'll just drink this salt water solution
Mm-hmm.
and that will take care of everything and it will, help me be hydrated and, take care of my run. But I think it's important I stress to athletes, like, you need to also drink water and have electrolytes during those hotter days. But really, water is almost more of a focus if it's not like a really bad day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is like kind of in the concept of when we're thinking about like in workouts specifically. I have a lot of people who come at me with resistance to sports drinks for a number of reasons. Misconceptions, whatever their belief system is, right? A lot of, especially I see it in I'm going to say air quotes, younger athletes who may have not grown up in the Gatorade and Powerade era. Go ahead.
When you say sports drinks, can you
Mhm.
just define that for the listeners?
Yes, great. That was a good call out. So when I say sports drinks, I mean sports drinks with carbohydrates in them, like actual Gatorade, not Gatorlights, not Gatorade Zero. In the endurance space, more athletes are familiar with like Tailwind, Scratch. There's all sorts of different carb-based sports drinks. Um, so there's a lot of common misconceptions. I also grew up in the Gatorade Powerade era of sports, starting even when I did my first marathon in 2009, first Ironman in 2012. It was like regular Gatorade. There was not all of these products that we have available now, which can be overwhelming, but I like to kind of flip that script there and say, this is amazing because we have lots of options for you to try when it's different flavors, different formulas. So to me, there really are no excuses as to why we don't include those. But back to what I wanted to say before I forget, before it flies out of my brain, is that especially in the window of in our workout, in our run, adding carbs to your fluids helps with the absorption of water in the intestines, along with providing, of course, that essential energy, that carbohydrate we need to fuel the efforts. So it is going to trigger a sodium glucose transport mechanism that's going to draw the waters directly into the cells much faster than plain water alone. So we have the carb-based sports drink that is going to have some sodium in it. That kind of tells the body, all right, let's go. And it's also just going to help that hydration, be a little bit more hydrated, and then also get those carbohydrates that we want during exercise. I almost said hydration status. I'm trying to make sure I don't get too clinical nerdy with my with my terms there. So we
Is
love those.
No, we're talk nerdy to us, please. When runners are coming to you, and I recognize that when they work one-on-one with you, you kind of are able to pull certain metrics that are important to the individual runner, since this is such a unique
Mhm.
experience. There are runners who are heavier sweaters and saltier sweaters,
Mhm.
present company. Um, Also just have a lower sweat rate, but maybe a higher sodium, right? So is there something for outside of working with you one-on-one, Stevie? What are some ways that a runner or an endurance athlete can figure out, okay, how much sweat am I losing and about how much sodium do I need to be taking during a run, after, et cetera, before? Lay it
Yeah,
on us.
yeah, absolutely. So when we're thinking about hydration and, some signs that we might be on like the higher end of fluid losses, sodium losses, is that you experience symptoms. You're symptomatic more, whether that's headache, fatigue, chills, cramping, GI distress. Those are some of the things. If we notice like a lot of salt on our gear after you're done exercising, that's another big sign that like we probably want to explore this a little bit more. But when we're thinking about like, okay, how much do I need? Always the goal is to try and prevent losing anything more than 2 to 3% of your body weight. Studies show that that's going to impair your performance, also make you not feel well. So you can really do a basic, we'll say basic sweat test at home if you are comfortable getting on the scale. This is something any athlete can do. You can weigh yourself without clothes before you go to a run for 60 minutes, keeping track of how much water you drank. Or I tell athletes don't use the bathroom, just so it makes the calculations a little bit easier for you to do. Then you don't have to try to estimate, oh my God, how much did I go to the bathroom? Then you can weigh yourself immediately after you finish your run without clothes. And you can then calculate your unique sweat rate. Gatorade Sports Science Institute has a calculator on their website that you can just input weight before, weight after. If you drank fluids, this is how much, and it will do the math for you. That can be a very good kind of benchmark testing. And then, kind of the assumed sodium losses is done per like liter of fluids lost. It's assuming we're losing 1 gram of sodium per liter of sweat lost. And that can be used to calculate a sodium goal range, is kind of how I approach it. Again, if I have somebody who's very symptomatic after they're running and the heat and humidity, who really struggle in the heat humidity, if you're more sensitive to heat, that can be an indicator that you're losing a little more sodium or you have a higher sweat rate. That's where we might want to explore other options to really get that sweat sodium concentration number. And that's getting more accessible for individuals than it has been in the past. Otherwise, you can use that assumed 1 gram of sodium loss per liter. For the most part, I have people do that on their own. And if they want to do additional testing, the calculation really isn't too far off from what we're seeing with the additional testing. So it's kind of a good range to get you started, and then pay attention to how you're feeling after your runs, during your runs, and notice if, oh, I used to always kind of be headachy and tired after those runs, but I did this now and I'm replacing 50 to 75% of my fluids loss. I'm feeling a lot better.
I used to overestimate a lot of how much I actually drank from a water fountain. I'd just be like, oh, I'm going to go to 3 water fountains on my 18-mile run in the middle of summer, and I'm going to drink 16 to 20 ounces of water. And no, like not even close. And like that would make me sick probably doing that much at once. So I learned as I got older, like, hey, I just can't rely on water fountains as my solution. For me, if I didn't want to carry a handheld, it was always then like loops to my car, like staying very close in that range. But yeah, that calculation works. I know there's a lot of devices. There's this little patches you can send in for results too that people have done. I know there's more devices you can kind of stick on your arm on your runs, and it gets you all this data for all those people who just love data. Here's more, but yeah, I think just starting with the tests you mentioned, that's like the easiest starting point.
Yeah, it's a very low barrier to entry, pretty easy to access. And then, like I said, we're aiming to replace 50 to 75% of losses per hour. So if your sweat rate is 16 ounces per hour, like the bare minimum is 8 ounces. And this is always going to be higher when it's hotter and more humid. We can do a little bit of a calculation where if we did a sweat test in not a hot environment, we can retest in a hot environment or add just like 10 to 20%. But like you said, like it is great we have this data, but in conjunction with that data that we can get, I always have my athletes pay attention to how they feel. That's a lot of the work that I do, because we like to override those things and say like, well, this sensor told me I only needed this, but like I still am getting dizzy and lightheaded at the end of my runs. So noting that and then seeing how you make the adjustments in your fueling, be like, oh, wait, I did this really hot long run and I felt way better afterwards. And I could, go chase my kids around and had the energy to do it and didn't need to crash out for a little bit.
Can we go back for a second to you were talking about sports drinks, and I think that that is a good place to talk about an individual's carbohydrate needs in the summer and what your body is doing to perform with the carbohydrates and why you may want to consider how you are fueling, whether it's sports drinks, gels, chews, etc., during your run in the summer or hotter conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in hotter and more humid conditions, you're going to have a higher burn rate. Your body is working harder to cool itself, which means that the stored muscle glycogen is going to deplete much faster than in those cooler months. And it's funny because this weekend when we were running across the state, it was like 90 degrees. And I was like, I was like, my body is oxidizing more glycogen. It's like the nerdy things we think about when we're out there exercising. So that is key. And this is also why I'm obviously, as you know, a proponent of eating enough carbohydrate all of the time so that we're not riding close to empty on those glycogen stores. Of course, those aren't always going to be topped off like they will be in a carb load setting. The goal is to not have them completely full. But I see a lot of athletes kind of riding close to that, like me with my car. Gas roulette, public enemy number one, me. Whenever I whenever I fill up my gas tank before the low fuel light goes on, I'm sure to call my mom and let her know so she can tell me good job as a almost 38-year-old woman. This is what I do. But I don't do this with carbohydrates in my glycogen stores. So staying on top of daily carbohydrate intake will be important. We have that higher burn rate, right? Body's working harder to stay cooler, especially then when we think about, humid environments as well. You're also going to have a lower gut tolerance in the heat. And I'm thinking about some athletes that I know who did a half Ironman in Cambridge, Maryland, close-ish to you, Nick, and it was very warm. And one of them was like, I just couldn't take any of my gels. When we have those hot conditions, heat is going to draw the blood away from your digestive tract to cool your body. It's going to go right to the skin to, keep that cooling mechanism, right? Our body is always trying to keep us alive. Like that's priority number one. So that can make fueling a little bit harder and an increased risk of GI distress. This is, sometimes like my first race this year, I went from winter to a dew point of 74. So it's like, you hope a wing and a prayer that all of the gut training I did over the winter was enough that I'm going to be able to tolerate close to my goal carb range on race day. But like as we get into the summer months, it is such a great opportunity to practice fueling in these hot and humid conditions because we are all going to be racing in hot and humid conditions because races keep getting hotter. We don't even need to go into the why, but they are, and that's the facts. And that can be a very big superpower to know like, okay, I did my tempo effort and I was able to take in my goal fuel and I was able to tolerate it. So that can just be a big confidence builder as you go into race day rather than we can't control the weather conditions, but we can control how we're going to approach it from a practical standpoint, but also that mindset, especially when it comes to fueling as well.
I'm going to start calling my mom every time I eat a bunch of carbs and just let her know that I've filled my carb intake for the day. And just going to call her up. She'd probably appreciate it. I don't call her enough. But I suffer from that too. I mean, I think a lot of people do. In the summer, it's very hard for me to eat. I drink a lot more, like more smoothies and other things, because I do find that otherwise I don't eat. I don't really want to eat, especially like if I go do a run at lunch like I did today and then I want to go eat afterwards. It's hard to get down stuff for a bit. So I switched to a lot of liquids and then I eat some solids.
Yes, absolutely. And that's totally normal. Again, redirecting blood flow away from the gut. And it's also going to alter your hunger hormone, ghrelin. So it's very, very normal. And liquid is the way to go. Rehydrating well after those hot and humid runs, as you do, it sounds like, Nick, can help with that kind of appetite suppression as well. But if you find that your appetite is very poor after all of your long runs or workouts in the heat, that would be kind of an indicator. Like if we're working together, I'd be like, we need to do a little check in on our hydration.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, Stevie, you did a half Ironman, I saw on the internet. So
Mm-hmm.
can you talk to us a little bit about your fueling hydration for this event? I think it helps a lot of athletes to hear how other people fuel longer events.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's my first half Ironman in 7 years. So it was a little bit daunting and scary. And I was like, oh, so much has changed. We don't do body marking. Like things are very different in the Ironman racing world. But yeah, so going into the race, I obviously carb loaded. I did about 600 grams of carbs for the 2 days leading into the race. Hydration is always part of my carb load, and I recommend that people use that as a tool. I, in particular, use Tailwind High Carb as a way to get, I even used it this past weekend running across New York State. I'm like, okay, I have 90 grams of carbs in this bottle. I'm not sleeping. My meal timing is all off. Let me use this as a tool. I also use it in those carb loads leading into the race because you're just not hungry. You're eating a lot of carbohydrates. It's a little bit weird. So find those things that you can use as a tool. Sour Patch watermelons are one of my favorite carb load foods because you can eat so many of them and get so many carbs and they don't take up a lot of space. So I did that leading in the couple days beforehand. Thankfully, I was able to get to Florida a little bit earlier. Hydration is part of that. My sweat rate is really moderate. Like I feel #blessed to not be a crazy high sweater. So for me, hydration is pretty easy to navigate on race day. But leading into the race, all of my long rides, I was practicing all the sports drink I was going to use. I looked up what was going to be on course. Okay, that's not what I want to use. How am I going to carry everything? Figure that out and then practice it. Where on my long bike rides, I would do extra carbohydrates. In long distance triathlon, I try to do more on the bike to not fall behind and set myself up for a good run. So I was aiming for like 90 to 100 grams on the bike. And I practiced that every single long ride. All of my fueling from hydration to gels. And then, so we had that set. Race morning was get the sad bagel into the face at 3:15 in the morning because it was a 5:50 a.m. race start, which is truly, truly heinous. So had that in bagel, orange juice, banana, bottle of sports drink, and then I had a bag of chews closer to the race start because you got to go to transition, do all of the things. But I start eating at 3:15 and try to get most of it in within 30 minutes, and then sip sports drink, have the snack before the race. The swim was shortened for us, but it was salt water. So I knew that was going to just be very interesting and important for me to have extra hydration in transition. I also got stung by a jellyfish in the ear, which was something. So I
Type 3 fun.
right. So I knew getting on the bike, my heart rate was going to be even more elevated than it usually is going from swim to bike. And that is something I have my athletes, who are doing, especially long course triathlon, just keep in consideration because trying to throw a lot of carbohydrate in at a very elevated heart rate can lead to GI distress. So for me, I knew getting on the bike, like in transition, I can sip some sports drink, carb-based sports drink, and that's going to be okay. But I waited a little bit until my heart rate settled down on the bike to start throwing gels in so I wouldn't get an upset tummy. So then I actually didn't go through and count how many grams per hour I had, but I'm usually right around, around 80 to 85 once we average out across the race. But I had all of my bottles of sports drink on the bike, and then I just do all gels, baby, in a 70.3. I don't even know how to say the name, but the Amex, AMCX is what I call it, just the Amex.
What favorite? Yeah, I like that one
Yeah.
too.
Yep. So those were the ones I used all day. The packaging is bigger, but the carb and sodium amount is excellent. I use that with Tailwind in my bottles, and I used caffeine. And I like to save my caffeine for when I know things are going to be getting a little bit rough. So I saved it for hour 2 on the bike, knowing I'd be off the bike in well under 3 hours. So I could get it for that last bump. I'm very much an athlete who kind of studies the course too, and I knew I'd be heading into probably a pretty bad headwind for the last 10 miles of the bike. So I saved the 75 milligrams of caffeine for the battling of 10 miles of headwind, and then started my like cooling strategy the last couple aid stations on the bike as well. Even though it was cloudy, on those cloudy races, I see athletes really make the mistake of letting their body, you don't feel how hot you actually are on the bike because you're getting the breeze. But I always start with water on the back of my neck and my head the last couple aid stations. So then I'm not making a big jump from bike to run and having that heart rate jump way too high, too fast into the run. And yeah, then I got off the bike and it was just gels. And I had my handheld. Again, I didn't want the Encore sports drink. Did sips of water in between, more cooling. I dropped my last gel and it was a 3-loop course. So it was all flat Coke every mile and a half. Because I'm like carbs, caffeine, a little bit of sodium, right? To just carry me through to the finish line. So that was it.
Love that recap. I feel like enough people don't use caffeine as part of their fueling and hydration. It's such a. I mean, I know it can cause some GI issues if you don't practice it, but it's such a performance enhancer. I love timing it perfectly for late in a marathon or even late in a half. Just getting that boost is like a game changer.
Oh, yeah.
When you do take caffeine,
Hmm.
at what point does it, so you're mentioning late in a race. So out of curiosity, you take a caffeine gel
Hmm.
or you have something with caffeine.
Hmm.
When do you start to feel the effects of that caffeine?
Yeah. So this is why Nick alluded to practicing it because everybody is going to respond a little bit differently. So when we're thinking about the timing, it's going to depend on the individual because we all have a different gene as to how we metabolize and kind of break down caffeine, where some people are slower to metabolize it, some are faster to metabolize it. So we definitely want to practice it and kind of see how it's going to make us feel. That's also important with the dosing, but you'll see it within 15 to 45 minutes with peaks 30 to 90 minutes. The average half life is 3 to 5 hours. So when we're thinking about it, it's just going to depend on the person. I tend to feel it like pretty quickly because when I took it at like hour 2, I felt it and I was like, oh, okay, I'm alive now, right? Like that it will reduce the feelings of pain and fatigue, like that perception of pain and fatigue, which is why I kind of save it for when I know I'm going to be hurting a lot to use it as a tool. And yes, definitely practice it. The dosing is important. I tried 100 milligram caffeine gel and I thought I was going to fall off a treadmill when I took it. I was like, I'm gonna have heart palpitations. I was like, I
Oh,
do not feel well. But a 75 milligram caffeine gel worked fine. So it's also knowing kind of that sweet spot. There are lots of gels with lower amounts, and I am a regular caffeine drinker, so I was very surprised that the 100 milligram gel impacted me that much. Other people, I have some clients who take like, what is it, the SIS nootropics? It has 200 milligrams.
that's my favorite. I
That's
pop that bad boy late in the
that
race,
is the
and
four
it's like rocket
loco
fuel.
of gels, and I for one am on board.
Yeah. They're very
I'm back at University at Buffalo.
Like she never left.
Like I never left. I'm at the steer. I'm probably on a table. I know no better when I take that gel. That
Yeah.
gel is
I've never tried it, but after the 100 milligrams, I'm too afraid.
No, but I had to add
no,
a
you should
disclaimer
F
because
around and find out, Stevie.
every time I mention it on social media, SIS is in my DMs and they're like, "You're only supposed to take one. You're only supposed to take one." Because there's like people. I remember there's one reel that went crazy viral, and someone's like, "Oh, I took multiple of these," and we're like, "That's like 700 grams of caffeine you took, bro." I also know. I don't know if people do this anymore. We used to talk. A lot of people used to talk about like going on caffeine hiatus or not taking caffeine for like 2 or 3 weeks leading up to a race, and then getting like a bigger performance boost on like real close to the race. I've never tried it because I don't want to suck that joy out of my life of not having coffee every day. And I don't know if people talk about it as much, but it definitely was something talked about a lot. I saw on social media in like 19, or not 19, like in 2020 around there, like people were doing these like caffeine, like
It's like a detox. I did it once and I was sad, but I didn't do it really. Like I was sad for 2 days and I don't like to be sad. I I don't have a clear memory of it, of the PR changing my life and if I made it to the Olympics. But
Yeah.
Stevie, do you know if Stevie, is that caffeine detox potentially a real thing based on the individual?
It's so funny you bring this up because I used to do a caffeine taper for every Ironman
taper. That's the word
that
I
I
couldn't
did.
think of. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I did a caffeine taper for every full Ironman I did. I think every single one. So, but I don't. It's been a long time since I've read the study. It has since been proven like, it's not
Yeah.
really that effective to do a caffeine taper. What I would do is I would start like if I might drink 2 or 3 cups of coffee a day. I would start just a week out or 2 weeks out. I would start cutting it back and tapering it to where I was drinking like half a cup, and then I would do 7 days before the race with no caffeine. Uh did it really do anything? I don't know. It could have just been placebo effect, but I no longer partake in that. But I also don't drink coffee on race morning usually. I don't drink coffee
Oh,
before
I
my
do.
long runs. I don't drink coffee before any of my workouts. That's more of a personal choice because there was a time where I was using coffee as a band-aid and got very much out of touch of how tired I actually was. And I like to stay honest with myself with my caffeine usage. Plus, I always have to pee so much during a long run if I have coffee first. I ain't got
Well,
time for that.
yeah, that for sure. But the flip side is I always can do my other business. I can make sure that's done before my run starts. So that's why I started doing it. And also I like, performance enhancer. So, but yeah. No, I could never do a caffeine taper. That's the word. I was trying to think of it the whole time. Too much joy in my life comes from coffee. So no, thank you.
Yeah, I honestly don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. But if somebody wants to do it and they feel like it is for them, I'm like, great, grand, love it for you. It's not going to do you any harm. And if you feel better, cool. Speaking of doing harm, going back to the dosing of caffeine, I always like to, it was funny when I did my first Ironman way back in 2012, people were actually taking like caffeine pills. Like that's what was happening for like no dose caffeine pills for caffeine dosing. And it is important to know that the max effective dose is 6 milligrams per kg body weight. Yeah. So thinking about that, usually like 3 to 6 or 4 to 6 milligrams per kilogram body weight is the effective dosing. So like again, more is not always better, but everybody has a little bit difference of a tolerance. I have people who tolerate it in their daily intake with coffee, but just can't do it on race day. So, yes, there are lots of benefits to it, but if it's going to make you feel unwell, again, the juice is not worth the squeeze. It's like somebody I had do that with ketones. And I was like,
Yeah.
we talked about not using ketones in Lake Placid, did Ironman Lake Placid, and had GI issues the whole run and missed a Kona spot. I was like, we identified that this was an issue for you, so I don't know why we are we decided to use it, but as I say, everybody's choice.
That could be it. I mean, like, there's so many other things you can do for performance these days anyway. You can just get some broccoli bicarb and, you get the same boost you could ever get from a caffeine taper. So, you're good.
Totally. Sounds
Yeah,
delicious.
sometimes I hate it here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, agreed.
So we have, all right. So to wrap up some of the things we talked about related to fueling and hydration during the summer, there are accessible ways to measure your sweat rate, and your sodium loss, but more important than that is just identifying the symptoms that you experience, and if you make changes, if you feel better as a result of said changes. I also heard you loud and clear on the way you fueled your half Ironman, which also happened to be in warmer conditions. And your girl went higher carb, even though that's your normal. It is important to remember that our bodies are burning more, working harder, and no need to be afraid. Let's lean into the higher end of what your body can handle. Is that right,
Yeah,
boss?
absolutely. For sure. And then, if you're out there and you're like, oh, I'm starting to not feel great, this doesn't feel the best. Sometimes it's just like, I didn't do it in my half Ironman, but I've done it in a full Ironman where I'm like, I literally can't take this gel, but I know I need carb, fluid, sodium. What does the aid station have that I can take? Flat Coke, chicken broth, oranges if you think that's going to sound better, pretzels. So just trying to stay on top of things, and also just kind of knowing that, okay, if I need to take a little space, let me get back on the plan as soon as I can, not trying to play massive catch up. We never want to be playing catch up out there. That's how you also give yourself tummy troubles.
Yeah, grab that beer from that fan, even if you can't get the gel down. It's got carbs in it. You're good.
If that works for people, it's not something I recommend. But if there's freezy pops, I'm thinking about the Boilermaker coming up next month in Utica, New York. Lots of freezy pops out there on race day, and it can be a nice. And then again, it's cold, right? Having cold ice, cold water, cold beverage, cold freezy pop is also going to be helpful. Taking ice in your hands, on your neck, if you're willing to possibly chafe the dream in your sports bra or wherever you can get it to kind of keep that core temperature down, is also going to help as well.
Yeah, and don't mistake those Vaseline sticks as an ice pop.
Yeah, please
Um,
don't.
yeah, don't do that. I've had a lot of people tell me they've done that over the years. So,
You've had a
like
lot? I
more
have not
than
had a single person
oh,
ever.
we're almost at double, like well into double digits of people who've told me
Really?
they've accidentally eaten
Whoa.
Vaseline off a popsicle stick, thinking it's a gel or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
I need to get out more, I guess. I think that's what I need. All right, next, shift the gears.
All right, let's shift it. All right, so let's talk about supplementing versus gut issues. And so, causing your body not to absorb things like, let's just use iron as a big example. So, when do you recommend an athlete supplement versus when would you recommend an athlete to kind of look into what might be causing these issues? And, can we go down that whole fun rabbit hole?
I love this rabbit hole. As you know, I'm very fond of it. So, man, where do I even start? Iron. So common. If we are consistently having low iron, we're doing our darndest to get it up and it's going nowhere. This is a very persistent problem, or it's very low. Like, I consider low. Well, we know the standards have changed, but if we're significant, like sitting in the like below 30 most of the time, we really want to dive deeper as to what is going on here and why are we not storing this iron. This is what I mean. I should circle back and say ferritin. If our ferritin is consistently below 30 over time, we see a lot of bone stress injuries. If we're constantly sick, injured, we can't put together a training cycle consistently. I'm thinking about people who are getting hurt every few training cycles and we have lower ferritin. That's when we want to kind of dive deeper. If we have some GI symptoms, you don't necessarily need GI symptoms to have issues with absorption and utilization. When I'm thinking about it, if I'm working with this person one-on-one, which is ideal, I'm always starting with the low-hanging fruit of, are we eating enough? Because if we're not eating enough, that's where I'm going to start. Depending on where the ferritin level is and what the rest of the blood work looks like, we may start a low dose supplement just to kind of help bridge that gap as we increase intake. Then I'm going to look at carbohydrate intake, because we know inadequate carbohydrate intake can impact iron status. It's also going to impact digestion, therefore absorption and utilization of nutrients. And then we're going to layer in from there. Do we need to look at training volume? Some of my very chronic low ferritin people, I look at training volume, because we know with the inflammation response to exercise, that is going to throw off how our body utilizes iron and stores iron with the hepcidin response. So that consistent high volume, poor recovery, under recovery inflammation will impact the intestinal lining. So then it's looking at mandated rest days. Is this a person who's used to working out 7 days a week? Are they a high volume athlete? I can't fully make that decision for all of my clients, but if we're very much struggling, I try to have a very honest conversation with them that it's going to be easier for them to increase these levels if we decrease training volume, right? Because then we're not bridging a smaller gap here. So if we can increase intake, decrease volume, that's always going to be easier for the athlete to get caught back up into energy balance, or just making sure they're getting enough overall for the output, for the demands. So that's kind of what I start to look at. Well, I'll see if there are any symptoms like feeling full quick is one of those symptoms of boom, boom, boom. Are we under fueling? Is there something like H. pylori going on in the gut? Is there some dysbiosis or overgrowth of, very technical term, bad gut buggies going on? Other signs like reflux, burping, bloating, constipation, some of those GI symptoms. It's starting like with that low hanging fruit of, are we eating enough so our body has the resources to properly digest things? Because in low energy availability, again, the body is cutting corners, and it's going to cut corners for those very high energy demand processes to keep you alive and functioning. And while we all think digestion is important, your body is like, well, we have to keep your heart beating first. So GI symptoms can often very much be low energy availability. So kind of picking apart, okay, what's going on with this individual? Are they struggling with some of these symptoms? Let's start with kind of restoring energy balance. And if ferritin has been really bad or low, we'll use that supplement to kind of bridge that gap and just give them a little bit of help. But the goal is that like this should not be a staple in your life if we do use an iron supplement.
Yeah, I find this topic is very interesting to me because I have so much to talk about with it. But like, there's a couple things I find interesting. One is that a lot of runners just get ferritin tested, and then in a bubble, they're like, "Oh, well, my ferritin's low, so I'm just gonna supplement iron." And I'm like, "Do you even know what your iron is? Because like, what if your iron's really high and your ferritin's low? Because that is a thing. Then you're just poisoning yourself. So maybe give it a bigger picture." And then outside of that whole thing, and maybe you could talk a little about this. Like, I feel like I'm seeing more and more people get iron transfusions, and like the way they're explaining it is, oh, my iron
Infusions or
infusion. Sorry,
are
yeah,
they? No, you don't have to apologize.
yeah,
I'm making sure.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
wasn't a correction. I was
I
like,
said
wait a
the wrong
second.
thing.
I've been saying infusion.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, what is?
I said the wrong thing.
I'm gonna
But
learn something today. No, that's good. You're
but
right.
so I see a lot of people get those, and the way they explain it is, oh, my ferritin, my iron was low, and I just need this to kind of get things back to normal, and then they'll just stay there forever. And like, is it harder when your iron ferritin low? Is it harder to get it up? And once it's stable, it stays there more? Is that like a thing, or is this just something that's kind of getting pushed in this world of pseudoscience that maybe is taking over?
This is such a great topic, and I'm so glad you guys brought it up because I actually have a few clients, but one recently that comes to mind, who was chronic low ferritin, chronic. and eventually got an iron infusion from their doctor, like prescribed, not this, oh, I know I'm a nurse and I know some doctors, so I'm going to just like I don't quite hit the line, but I'm just going to ask for this iron infusion because I know people. So she was someone who, you know, like medically, okay, yeah, it could be indicated. Unfortunately for her, I spoke to her a few weeks ago and she said, I deeply regret doing it because it put her into iron overload. And she said she felt worse in iron overload than she did when her ferritin was like a 2. She said she felt awful, and she has not, I mean, I'm proud of all of the hard work she has done. She has not been racing. She has been running significantly less than she had been. She's been working very hard to kind of get lots of things sorted out so she feels better before she takes on another training block. She's a very talented athlete. She said it felt worse, but unfortunately, her ferritin and all of her lab work wasn't high enough for the doctors to treat the iron overload. They're like, you just got to kind of ride this out. And it took a while. And it's hard because iron overload symptoms and deficiency symptoms are the same. You know, chronic fatigue and weakness, joint and abdominal pain. Those are some of the very common things that you will see. But yeah, it also can cause organ damage if we are in a state of iron overload. So it's more is not always better. Again, a memoir. So it's also a band-aid, right? There are times where it really is medically appropriate for a person to get an infusion, but like I see so many athletes just jumping to it rather than getting to the bottom of being honest with themselves. I am not eating enough to support my training. I'm not eating enough carbohydrates to support my training. And it's very scary out there, truly, to kind of see. But yeah, and to answer your question as to if you get an infusion, then you're in a better place for your ferritin levels moving forward. Not necessarily. If, yes, the net number might be up for a bit, but if you're not changing the actual cause, like what, I hate the word root cause because the internet ruined it, but like what is the etiology? Why is this happening? Then eventually you're just going to end up to the place you were in. I mean, I've had a ferritin as low as 12 many moons ago, maybe like 6-7 years ago. But after going through and being like, oh, let me look at this. I need to take one rest day a week. I need to back off my training. I need to work on certain things. You know, I've done GI map gut testing on myself, which you don't always need to do. But that was one piece of the puzzle for me that since I've did all of those things, the basics, readjusted, changed my training volume, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, for the last, I don't know, since then, my ferritin has been well above 40. Training for a marathon, training for a 70.3, you know, doing all of the things and living a very busy life because I addressed what needed to be addressed and built those lifestyle habits that are non-negotiables for me now to make sure. And I never used a supplement to get that number up above there. It was all just the boring stuff and figuring out what my issues were that I needed to address to keep that level up.
Yeah, that's what I really wanted to get out of this because I've heard the conversation of, oh, once I get my levels normalized, then I'll just be able to keep it there. That's why I'm getting in, you know, this iron infusion. But I think the other interesting thing that I always see with athletes is, you know, they usually get tested, they get their blood work done in a base field building block, training volumes lower, maybe a race has happened a few weeks ago, maybe we waited a month, and they're like, oh, it's okay, it's a normalish, it's fine-ish. And then they go do the hard stuff, and then it's right around the race and it's tanked, right? And and then they're like, oh, I should have been supplementing more. I should have been supplementing more. And I'm like, okay, yes, but like if this happens every time we increase training volume and intensity, and you need to increase training volume and intensity to chase your goals, like we need to sort of go back and figure out why, like, because we just can't supplement forever. And then how do you know you're supplementing enough? Because you're just throwing, you know, spaghetti at the wall, and you're like, well, when my volume goes up, then I add more supplementing. And it's like, do you, like, what do we know? Like, so I know supplementing feels like an answer for a lot of people, and it's the easy one.
Yeah.
But if you're constantly running into this every time you're doing a training block, and then sometimes it's really sabotaging your race because maybe you run your race and then you get your iron checked and you're like, oh, my ferritin was 10. No wonder I ran 90 minutes slower on my marathon. Like something's happening more than just you're not supplementing enough.
Yeah, and when it comes to iron metabolism and recycling within the body, there are lots of other compounds and nutrients that are key in that process. So sometimes it's not an iron issue. A lot of times it's not an iron issue, if I'm being quite honest. It's either we're not getting enough carbohydrate, we're not getting enough overall intake, or we're missing out on some of those other compounds that our body needs to store, recycle, through that metabolic process versus just more iron itself. And then, as you said, the same thing can happen with supplements as infusions, is that more is not better. You need to kind of find what your body is absorbing and utilizing, and just blindly increasing the supplement is not it.
And I think that the biggest takeaway for me when we've talked about this in the past with Stevie on this podcast, between two coaches, offline, because I refer, I have, I pretty much have 3 RDs that I trust my entire life. Like, put, you know, you don't need to put a bulletproof vest on me. I could just strap me in SLS. I'm constantly referring people to Stevie, and I am not a board certified RD. And when I hear from clients that they go to a doctor and the doctor says, this is the issue, this is the fix to the issue, there isn't, unfortunately, the education or the answer kind of stops there for a lot of people, unless they have somebody in their corner to be like, actually, you really want somebody to look at this with a finer tooth comb.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's always more there. And even if you're doing it unintentionally, which I have found with both myself, I've never had an iron or a ferritin issue, but I've definitely been in a low energy state, which is, to your point, one does not mean that the other is present. When I talk to runners and fitness enthusiasts, they may think that they are eating enough until they talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then they find, when they really break it down, like, oh, I'm actually not getting in enough carbohydrates. Oh, I'm actually not eating enough fats. Oh, I'm actually not. I thought I was getting in 20, 30 grams of protein in every meal, but it turns out that this piece of chicken is really, I, for one, am shocked. I am, if you're staring at the screen, I just have a lip balm in the in the screen.
She's holding a
So
chicken.
that's why it's so important to, if you're going to invest in anything money wise, how about you do it right the first time with a professional? I'm just going to say it like that.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of giving daddy Amazon Prime every month the iron supplement subscription, let's try to do it right the first time. And that's, I'm getting off my dial soapbox.
We love that soapbox though. And, another thing that I also just want to note with especially ferritin, it is what we call an acute phase reactant protein. So that means in the state of inflammation, that number is going to be falsely elevated. I see people be like, oh, yes, sick. I got my ferritin up to 40. And I will be like, oh, this is like within a week after your race. I'm going to say that's probably, unfortunately, not an accurate result. So I do encourage people to be cognizant of when they are testing their ferritin. And, we don't always know how much inflammation is in our body, but not right after a big training block or soon after a race. Like, I like people to time it out a little bit better, and or get HSCRP, which is a very sensitive marker of just generalized inflammation in the body, tested with their ferritin, if I can be really particular when I have clients order it. So we can kind of see like, okay, well, yes, your ferritin went up, but we see that your levels of the HSCRP inflammation is elevated. So we know this is probably being altered a little bit there too.
Love it. Thank you for all of that. That was
Yeah.
really beneficial. We have one last little outside the fueling and hydration needs, but it's another topic that has been coming up a lot lately, which we called months ago peptides.
Yes.
Tell us, do we need them?
Is just general. Do we need them? No. I mean, do we need them in the form that people are getting them?
Oh, you mean
Randomly off the
illegitimate?
internet in stacks off the internet? So to actually
Peptides.com? Are
peptides.com.
you
Yep.
calling me out on the website that I just created right now?
So peptides themselves are short chains of amino acids, so the building blocks of protein, and their action in the body is as a messenger, an essential messenger throughout the body. They play a big role in regulating everything from hormones to immune system to muscle growth and healing and repair of muscle. And they naturally trigger cellular responses. So this is the allure, right? You are seeing lots of things out there with air quotes research grade peptides on the market promoted for anti-aging, tissue repair, weight loss. You'll hear like BPC 157 is frequently promoted for like tendon and muscle recovery. Overall, right now, the safety and regulation of these things is very scary. There are lots of unregulated gray market injectable peptides. And when it comes to peptide research, the majority of the research is done in rats that we have right now. And this is where I tell people that like we aren't rats, right? So like the
Wait a
research,
second. Are
yeah,
you saying that my
newsflash.
peroneal tendon are you saying my peroneal tendon is not equal to that of the rat that lives on the one train right next to my Are you saying that?
I mean,
Because people are having a hard time understanding that.
I truly hate to be the bearer of bad news, but yes, I am saying that.
All jokes aside, it's a very important point that there are a lot of things that come out that we don't have a lot of human research on, and that should cause you to pause.
Mm-hmm.
Pause and pause.
Mm-hmm. Yes. There is not a lot of research done in human beings. This is, as I say many times, and will say many times in my career, this may change. There may be a time where we have different feelings about peptides and peptide use. Overall, this is a no for me, dog. Because again, we're not rats. And like the human studies are very small. And when we were looking, again, like critical thinking skills, when we're looking at a human study, I'm not quoting a peptide study because I don't know it off the top of my head. But if we are looking at any study and it's done in, let's say, 10 people, that is something that we cannot extrapolate to the broad population. It's just like when we talk about female athlete research. Okay, if this study is done in 20 college-age male rowers, okay, this could be interesting and can lead the charge for future research, right? So people often don't realize that a lot of research is done to explore if it's worth researching more in larger populations at a larger scale. They just automatically assume, oh, well, there's a study of 16 people that shows peptides is going to help joint and tendon use. Okay, were they sedentary individuals? Were they elite, well-trained individuals? What was the activity? Was it strength-based activity or was it endurance-based activity? How long was the study? What was the study design? Like, is it gold standard research or no? Like, so there's so many layers that come to it where like, yeah, like maybe there's going to be more research down the line in peptides where we're going to have a different view on it. But like right now, we ain't rats and I don't love it. It's the juice is worth the squeeze. It's not.
Yeah, but we don't have time for nuance on social media. So whatever can fit our narrative, and if there's a study, then we can call our narrative science-based, then we are good to go, right? Like whatever it is, it's just, well, I got a research study and I've already made an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I need, right? Now just give me a mic and a camera and I'm ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's all you need, truly, to get anywhere in this world. So, yeah, so that's again, and when I'm looking at anything from like iron supplements to what we're eating to peptides, my number one thing is always do no harm. And unfortunately, I'm used to people not listening to me, but I know my job is like, hey, this is the information we have. This is what it means. These are possible negative outcomes. These are, your body, your choice. But like my job is to give you the best information that we have. And then there is free will, right? You can take and do what you would like with it. But to me, like peptides are a non-starter.
Yeah. All right. Amanda, should we move on to our super secret questions? Do we have time?
The time is now.
The time is now. All right, Stevie, 3 questions. They're scored. Fast, rapid fire, timed. Are you ready? Yes, you are. Question the first. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Don't be a little bitch.
There we go.
Wow, very similar to the best piece of advice the previous guest,
Yeah.
literally, ultra runner.
That might be our most popular piece of advice
I love
we've
it.
gotten.
It's one of my. I love it.
That's what I say to
Yeah.
myself when I'm racing.
Yeah.
As you should.
You gotta say something. All right. Question the second. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
Oh, I have 2 things: that I'm a twin and that I was a lacrosse goalie by
Oh,
choice.
yeah. I think I knew. I didn't know you were. No, I knew you were a twin. The lacrosse goalie, I didn't know.
Yeah,
But
that was my.
I
I
can
didn't
see
run.
it.
That was my sport of choice.
Yeah.
I can see it because
Yeah.
I was a lacrosse defenseman.
Ooh, you guys would have been the dream team together. No one would have
I
scored.
also didn't run.
I hated running. Wouldn't run a lap around the field.
Should we get you guys back together and get on a team somewhere in Buffalo? Yeah. The people want to see
No,
it.
yeah. The
Yeah.
answer is yes. For us, we could do it.
We
We
could
could do it. I love me some Buffalo.
I do it
All
for
right.
you.
All right, we'll set that up. We'll get our people on it. All right. Question the third. What's something you wish more people understood about the nutrition or sports nutrition industry?
That is very different than nutrition for the general population. Sports nutrition, it's simple, but it's complicated. And what Aunt Susan is doing, it's not it. That, it's just very different. We have very unique needs. And, you can't be a bad bitch if you're a hungry one. So it's very important when you're chasing these goals, whether it's, running your first mile or going for a marathon personal best. You're not going to get there if you're not fueling yourself. You're limiting yourself.
Couldn't have said it better. Stevie, you are 3 for 3, according to my notes here, 100%. Great work. Back to you, Amanda.
Thanks, Nick. Stevie, we had such a wonderful educational time with you today. Can you let the folks who are listening at home know where they can find you so they can work with you and just absorb your brain?
Yeah, you can find me on my corner of the internet. At Instagram, it is at Stevie Lyn Lyn. That's LYNLYN. Or you can find my website at stevielynrd.com. My podcast is Real Fuel with SLS. Go check out my book with Strong Girl Publishing. And yeah, you'll catch me probably there of most places.
Amazing. Thanks, Stevie.
Thanks for having me.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to rate and review us wherever you listen or watch the podcast. And you can reach out to Coach Nick, myself, at any time at Running Explained. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.